Today is May 28th. Today we look at the structure of the end of Mark. So as we looked at the structure of the four Gospels, Matthew, Luke, and John, we really looked at all of the Gospels because their structure stretches through the entire book. But in the book of Mark, the first 8 chapters forms one unit, and chapters 9 through 16 form the second unit. So let's take a look at the end of the book of Mark. Beginning in Mark chapter 8, verse 31, then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, be killed, and after 3 days rise again. Jesus forecasts, he prophesies his own death 3 times, and it divides the first section of the end of Mark into 3 sections. From 8:31 to 9:29, the focus of that section is intimacy with Jesus. From 9:30 to 10:31, 9:30 he announces his death again, and immediately there are 4 teachings that have to do with children. Be a child to be a true member of God's kingdom. Then finally, 10:32 to 10:52, we have 2 paragraphs that occur there. In both of those paragraphs, Jesus asks certain people, what do you want me to do for you? 2 of his disciples said, give us power. We want control. He asked that question to a blind man. The blind man says, I want to see. What do you want me to do for you? That is the section, the 3rd section. Starting in chapter 11, we have the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. From 11 to 13, we have building confrontation. All during that Holy Week, Jesus is rejected by the Pharisees until they finally plot his death. Chapter 13, he says, this is what the end will be like. And he talks about the end of all things. In chapter 14, we have the Last Supper and the arrest of Jesus. Chapter 15, his crucifixion and his burial. And the interesting thing is that it's a Roman soldier. Mark was probably written primarily for a Roman audience. It's a Roman soldier who looks at Jesus on the cross and said, this was the Son of God. That is the ultimate question of who is Jesus that Mark wants you to come to. In chapter 16, we have Jesus's resurrection. But the interesting thing is that Jesus's resurrection ends in the book of Mark in verse 8. They were confused and confounded. They didn't know what to do, so they kept quiet. Later manuscripts adds a more pleasing ending to the book of Mark, but that's where Mark actually ends. So why does it end like that? Because Mark wants you to ask yourself the question, what'll I do? So what do we do today? Answer the question. What will you do with your knowledge of this man Jesus? Will you share it or will you keep it to yourself? Our reading of Scripture came from the New Revised Standard Version. Did you like what you heard today? Subscribe